Hey, it's Chase from On the Table Gaming, and today we're taking a look at the French Napoleonic line infantry from Perry Miniatures, specifically for the years 1812 to 1815. Now, this is an amazing box set, and if you've been thinking about getting into historical wargaming, specifically the Napoleonic eras, I highly recommend this, and there's several reasons which we'll get into in just a little bit. Now, while I was on their website, I also picked up a ramshackle barn. I'm just getting into historical miniatures, and so I gotta get some 28 scale scenery, and this is a great one that can be used across a wide range of eras, whether it's Napoleonics up until the World Wars. You know, there's barns everywhere. So we'll take a look at that as well. So starting off with the French Napoleonic line infantry, this is a beautiful box, and the front cover has some stylized art here that shows, you know, a depiction of a whole battalion here, 42 miniatures, and they're 28mm hard plastic. But on the back, this is the stuff that really makes this useful for me as someone who's just starting out. They give examples of French line infantry uniforms for drummers, grenadiers, voltigeurs, command, the whole works running through. And so you can actually sit with this box in front of you as you paint and look at this depiction to figure out, okay, exactly how am I supposed to be painting these miniatures? Because if you're getting into historical wargaming, chances are you're gonna wanna paint your miniatures to be matching that historical period. It's part of the fun of this. And having these examples right here makes it very easy to follow along, and I found that really, really helpful. So let's take a look inside the box. Now, the box comes with 3 sprues, and of course you've got your movement trays here. This is pretty standard stuff, but it comes in a variety of shapes and sizes for you to mount your troops down. But my favorite thing out of everything in the box, besides the beautiful sculpted miniatures, so I guess really miniatures first, but there's this little piece of paper, this little pamphlet, and this is so incredibly useful, especially for novice and beginner players, but I just think for everyone. It's the French infantry 1812 to 1815. It gives you information about the uniforms and variations on the helmets, the cuffs, and for someone who's just getting into this period, it was really cool because they have things like the fatigue caps and how they're stored. And this was particularly helpful for me because as I was looking at the miniatures, I was starting to have a deeper appreciation of how much detail and authenticity is included on the actual miniatures. Now, the piece of paper includes as well paint schemes for the command for French light infantry, and on the back side, if you're a more veteran player, it gives you examples for Swiss infantry in French service. So you can buy these, and if you're tired of painting blues, you can start painting some nice bright red. Now, it gives an example of a battalion and attack column, as well as standards for the 55th line and the 19th line, and some recommended rules. If you bought this set before you got any rule sets, it's recommending General de Brigade, Shako 2, and Black Powder. All great games to check out. But, you know, talking about how great it is, this box comes with a pamphlet. It is, but it's really the miniatures that are absolutely amazing. So let's take a look at the command sprue here. So right at the top, you can see you've got your musician, you've got your officer, and a standard bearer. And they're beautifully detailed. You can look at the expressions on them. The officer sort of yelling a charge. And then you got some voltigeurs over here with their long coats, but it gives you just an idea of the sorts of details. We've got extra heads, so if you are a veteran gamer and you want to modify these units or add different hats, you can. And the detail, once again, is just absolutely fantastic. Some different helmets. This one actually has a cut taken out of his hat. It looks like a saber or a shot maybe went through there, a little bit of battle damage. And I think the one thing I just want to stress is that the detail is so high and there's so many options for variables. So let's look at the actual line infantry itself. Now, most of these are in a marching position. And when I first took these out and I was kind of getting my bearings, they looked all very similar. And when you paint them up and you put them in their column, they're going to look beautifully uniform. However, closer inspection, there's lots of minor variants, which means that when you're painting them or when you get up close, you're going to realize just how unique these are, and it really makes them stand out as a lot more special. So we've got a variety of poses here, as you can see, and it doesn't look like there's going to be too much cleanup, but looking in here, you can see the different facial expressions, facial hair, sideburns, mustaches, the slight changes in their gait, and to maybe make it a little bit more easy to identify, you can see on the backpacks really clearly, it's 5 backpacks. You get the standard idea, you've got the bedroll at the top, but you've got pans and different gear on each of them, some scabbards as well. And these are little details that are gonna make them fun to paint. And when you put them together, give them that same uniform, but slightly different variation, it just makes them seem more unique. And I think this is really one of the cool things I liked about these miniatures was just how much detail down to the cuffs and collars there is on them, and yet how many variations there are. Now, Having them in that standard marching pose is going to make them look beautifully uniform. There are also these individuals that are put on here that are in more of an active firing squad. These can be your skirmishers out in front, and if you're playing a game like Sharp Practice, maybe these would be the ones you'd use that have more of like an action pose. But I think overall the sculpts are just going to look so beautifully together. And here, looking at the line infantry spruce, you're going to see we've got some your standard infantry in their marching order, but then we also have some examples of them with their long coats here, and you're going to have a lot of extra parts. So there's an extra drum here you could use for some scenic basing. You're going to add, at the end of this, you're going to have a jar of extra heads that you didn't use. Or if you're a veteran gamer, you can cut the heads off at the collar pretty easily and replace them with those heads. A little bit of green stuff. But don't worry, if you're a new player, you can still manage these just easily. These are really great miniatures in that they are accessible, but you can do a lot with them. And just overall, just keep hyping on the quality of the sculpts. If you get in on these details, they just look fantastic. Overall, I'm really pleased with the quality of these sculpts, and it's 42 miniatures at a really reasonable price. If you're coming from other game systems, that's a bit of a shock, just how much you get. And speaking of bang for your buck, let's also take a look at the ramshackle barn. So this is a really cheap scenery piece, and the box shows on the back the instructions. It's just a bunch of walls and a roof, or so you would think. And I think this is one of the things that I was really pleased with, just the little extra details on this too. So you've got your ceiling tiles here, your roof tiles, but there are also ladders and pitchforks and a wagon wheel. And this is another one of those scenic sets where if you don't have a lot of scenery, you can easily pick this up and it will take up some 3D board space, easy to put together, but you could do a lot of hobbying with it. So there's a lot of texture here that's going to make it somewhat easier to paint. And you can see on the example on the box, they actually put some greenery in there to make it so it stands out even further. A little bit of rot or vines on it. And so you can go ham with this. If you're a veteran wargamer, you can really make this look phenomenal. But at the same time, it's super accessible. And if you're just starting on the hobby, you can grab this to make your table look even cooler. So overall, I think those are the key points I want to emphasize for the Perry miniature ranges. Number one, if you've been worried about getting into historical miniatures or you don't know where to start, this is a great box set to start with. Very clear instructions, the great details on that pamphlet to help you get started with painting. And there are, of course, online resources. You can check out Duncan Rhodes Painting Academy to see how he paints up his French linemen. But everything in the box is going to be there to help you get started. And there's enough variation that if you bought a few of these boxes and you're a veteran player, or you come back and revisit and buy another one, you could cut it up and make some modifications to make them stand out and be completely unique. So I think the points I'd stress really is, in the end, this is a really accessible box. And so if you're just thinking about getting into Napoleonics and you've been worried about that investment, this would be the way to go. It's a small price point. You get to test out the models. They're incredibly detailed. They're awesome. I mean, you're not going to regret that. It also gives you a lot of tips on, how to paint the cufflinks and the coats and all of that. There's online resources as well, but it's just nice when you get a box that comes with everything. You don't feel like you're just like out in the wilderness on your own. So, super accessible, great price point. I would say go for it. And now if you're a veteran Napoleonic Wargamer, you probably know more about the hobby in this regard than I do, but I would think that there's enough small pieces in here and elements that you could cut them up and make some modifications that you could get a lot of diversity and a lot of range out of this singular box set. So I think this would be high on my ranking for that as well. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. If you've been thinking about getting into historical wargaming, let me know what you've been looking at. And if you're a veteran wargamer, let us know what are some of the systems you're playing, what are some of the miniatures we should definitely check out. And in the meantime, I hope you get your miniatures on the table.